Welcome. All right, we got masks on. Let's say something back, like welcome. Welcome. All right, yeah, I know it's a little damper to wear the masks, but we've got to look at the positives all the time here. So we're going to be a little lively, and we're going to focus on the positives, and we're going to be on the other side of this before you know it. But let's celebrate what we've got here today. It's my privilege to welcome you to today's ceremony of the Order of the Engineer, the Pledge of Computing Professional, and the Order of the Engineering Technologist. As a courtesy to our graduates, please do silence all your phones. This is me silencing mine. I'm not showing you how, but it's on the side. Until we're done. Members of the platform party who will be participating in today's ceremony are, for the Order of the Engineer, Dr. Christine Craven, Associate Professor of General and Basic Engineering. The Pledge of the Computing Professional, Dr. Gerald Ganad, Chairperson, Computer Science. And Pledge of the Engineering Technologist, again, Dr. Christine Craven, Associate Professor of General and Basic Engineering. And also supporting us today, our name reader, Dr. Ahmed Abunasef, Advisor. Abunasef, College of Engineering Student Success Center. We will begin with a brief history of each order and the significance of the order symbol, the ring, the badge, and the pin. But I also want to say that we do have one of us who couldn't be with us today, and so we do have somebody in the back joining us, so that's why we have somebody on stage, so she's with you. Dr. Craven will first present the history of the Order of the Engineer and the significance of its symbol, the ring.
This ceremony presents an opportunity for us to take a pledge and to recall that the professional purpose of engineering involves the pursuit of a learned art in the spirit of public service. By following the acceptance of the obligation, the individual engineer reinforces similar efforts of his or her peers, realizing that in unity there is strength. Decades ago, our engineering counterparts in Canada had this same feeling. They believed that a need existed for the introduction of a spirit of brotherhood and cohesiveness among engineers. The Canadians believed that a good way to achieve this purpose would be to instill in engineers a consciousness of belonging to one another, to themselves as individuals, and to those whom they serve. Thus was done in 1926 in Canada in what is now known as the ritual of the calling of an engineer. The words of the ritual were written by the English author Rudyard Kipling, who had much depth of feeling for engineers as the builders of things intended to benefit mankind. The Canadian ceremony is dignified, impressive, and includes the placing of a wrought iron ring on the small finger of the individual's working hand, and then having them repeat in concert the words of Kipling. It is difficult to visualize any better symbolism than that of a ring worn for all to see and saying, in effect, that here is an engineer dedicated to a publicly avowed obligation to the profession and to those it has served. In Ohio, the idea of similar maxims to those written by Kipling were well established, and correspondence began in October 1953 between the Canadian wardens responsible for the administration of the calling of an engineer and officers of the Ohio Society of Professional Engineers, with a view to possibly extending the Canadian ceremony to the United States. Due to copyright and other conflicting factors, extension of the ritual into this country was not possible. In 1966, a group of engineers in Ohio, with members of several engineering organizations, began to pursue the objective of what came to be called the Order of the Engineer. While the deliberations of this group were in progress, seniors of Fenn College of Engineering in Cleveland State University, counseled by Dean Burrell Bush, designed and held a ring ceremony and reception on June 4, 1970. Each participant signed a creed and received a plain stainless steel ring placed on the small finger of his or her working hand. 170 engineering seniors and engineering faculty members took part in this first ceremony. Since then, the movement has spread rapidly throughout the United States. During the second school year, 1970 to 71, 3 other ceremonies were held in the state of Ohio. Then, on October 9, 1971, Mr. Kenneth Jensen, a Tennessee Tech civil engineering graduate of 1952, represented the Ohio Board of Governors of the Order, came to Tennessee Tech campus and conducted the first ceremony held outside of Ohio. There were 77 engineers, including students, Tech faculty members, and professional leaders from across the state of Tennessee, who accepted the obligation and received the ring as a visible symbol of their profession. In subsequent ceremonies, the total number of engineers who have accepted the obligation at the hands of the Tennessee Tech Board of Governors has exceeded 7,000. In addition, the Tennessee Link was instrumental in establishing links in Chattanooga, Tullahoma, and assisted UT Knoxville with its first ceremony. In the short space of time since June 1970, the order has spread beyond Ohio and Tennessee to include more than 200 active links in all 50 states. And there are over 200,000 individuals throughout the nation who wear the ring, and the number is increasing steadily. Such is the story of an increasing acceptance of the Order of the Engineer, as it is known as the United States today. It is patterned on the Canadian concept, but with the stainless steel ring symbolizing strength and unity of the profession and providing an identifying mark of an engineer. Significance of the ring of the Order of the Engineer. The ring, a symbol of pride, prestige, honor, and professionalism among all engineering in the United States, also serves as a reminder to the engineer of our obligation to society. The symbol of your desire to serve the public is the engineer's ring. The ring you will wear on the 5th finger of the working hand will say to all who see it, "Here is an engineer, possessed of publicly avowed dedication to the profession and the public they serve." It is our symbol. Wear it for all to see. It is a badge of recognition which will become known to all as the sign of a learned professional pledge to making the best of Earth's precious and limited resources. Dr. Gerald Ganaud will now present the history of the Pledge of the Computing Professional and the significance of its symbol, the badge.
Thank you, Dr. Craven. The Tennessee Tech chapter of the Pledge of the Computing Professional was established in 2015 as the 31st node in the organization and the first node in Tennessee. In 2007, inspired by the example of the Order of the Engineer, individuals at Ohio Northern University and the University of South Florida created similar organizations for graduates of their respective computing programs. After interest in such an organization grew at other institutions, the Pledge of the Computing Professional was developed by an international team of 17 computing professionals. The organization held its first induction ceremonies in May 2011. Through today's ceremony, we foster professional pride, moral obligation, and ethical responsibility in all graduates of computing disciplines. The initiates who are present here today will soon stand to take this pledge. After this ceremony, There will be no organizational meetings to attend, nor will there be any dues to be paid. However, members of this organization are expected to keep their pledge to uphold and honor their chosen profession. The certificate and badge of the computing professional that each of our initiates receive here today will serve as visible reminders of this pledge throughout their professional careers. Significance of the badge of the computing professional. The symbol of the pledge of the computing professional is a matrix with the word honor encoded in ASCII. The background of the matrix is black. The digits are in gold. The purpose of the symbol is to remind the inductee to always honor the profession through their actions. Dr. Christine Craven will now present the history of the Order of the Engineering Technologist and the significance in the symbol, the pin.
Tennessee Tech is the founding institution for the Order of the Engineering Technologist. The inaugural ceremony was fall 2017 for this order. Using the Order of the Engineer as a model, the Order of the Engineering Technologist was established by the Manufacturing and Engineering Technology Department at Tennessee Tech University to foster the principles of professionalism, integrity, and public obligation. Significance of the pin of the engineering technologist. The seal on the pin that you will receive is indicative of the Order of the Engineering Technology and its origins at Tech, founded in 1915, the home of the Golden Eagles. Now the acceptance of the obligation of the Order of the Engineer. Will all candidates for induction into the Order of the Engineer please stand? In accepting the obligation, initiates will read with me in unison as indicated in your program. I am an engineer. I think this part we're supposed to do together. I am an engineer. In my profession, I take deep pride. To it, I owe solemn obligations. As an engineer, I pledge to practice integrity and fair dealing, tolerance and respect, and to uphold devotion to the standards and the dignity of my profession, conscious always that my skill carries with it the obligation to serve humanity by making the best use of Earth's precious wealth. As an engineer, I shall participate in none but honest enterprises. When needed, my skill and knowledge shall be given without reservation for the public good. In the performance of duty and in fidelity to my profession, I shall give the utmost. You may be seated. Dr. Ganaud will now lead the computing professionals in the acceptance of the Pledge of the Computing Professional.
Those of you that are taking the pledge, please stand. I believe your script is in the program. I am a computing professional. As a computing professional, So let me repeat the pledge. This is a pledge that I have taken myself. I am a computing professional. My work as a computing professional affects people's lives, both now and into the future. As a result, I bear moral and ethical responsibilities to society. As a computing professional, I pledge to practice my profession with the highest level of integrity and competence. I shall always use my skills for the public good. I shall be honest about my limitations, continuously seeking to improve my skills through lifelong learning. I shall engage in honorable and upstanding endeavors. By my actions, I pledge my honor to my chosen profession. Thank you. You may be seated. Dr. Christine Craven will now lead the engineering technologist and the acceptance of the obligation of the engineering technologist.
Will the initiates for the professional engineering technologist please stand? All right, so it looks like you all lead us off. Since the Stone Age, human progress has spurred by the genius of engineers and technologists. Engineering technologists have made usable nature's vast resources of material and energy for humanity's benefit. Engineering technologists have vitalized and turned to practical uses the principles of science, mathematics, and the means of technology. As an engineering technologist, as an engineering technologist, so you may be seated. At the point we will begin awarding the rings, badges, and pins. Dr. Ahmed Abu Nasif will help us with that. This now brings us to the portion of the ceremony in which we award the rings, badges, pins, and certificates. Once you receive your certificate, please sign the certificate on the table podium to the far right of the stage as a public acknowledgement of your willingness to accept the obligation of our pledge. Will candidate, I'm confused, are you supposed to be there or here?
Will the candidates for induction into the Order of the Engineer, Pledge of the Computing Professional, and Order of the Engineering Technologist please stand? And make your way over here. Lina Abu Nasif. Mason Rogers Angel. Gage Bentley. Jacob Cole. Tyler Coulter. Ethan Crabtree. Gabriel Cummings. Brian Joseph Domino. Samuel David Dunham. And joining us from teams, Catherine Finks. Congratulations. Stephen Foltz. Glenn J. Glenn II. Jared Alexander Grubbs. Glenn Hammonds. Allison Howell. Christopher Bradley Kashmerick. Shelby Kilgore. Nicholas William Lawson. Zachary Lee Lane. Razvan Marinescu. Matthew David Maxfield. Alyssa McDougall. Sarah Norman. David Montero Oliveras. Ravi Patel. Jackson Scott Reynolds Penfield. Sarah Leanne Roten. Elizabeth Rodinger. William Rogers. Hunter Ross. Reagan Skelton. Logan Smith. Kayla Truman Jorrell. Morgan Ayla Warner. And now for the Pledge of the Computing Professional. Jonathan Andrew Bedingfield. Tanner Paul Cagle. Lynn Lay. Jonah White. And for the Order of Engineering Technologist, Richard Franco. Austin Dwayne Phillips.
As we conclude this ceremony, I want to remind you once again that as engineers, computing professionals, and technologists, you've accepted both responsibility and obligation. When you look at your certificate, please note that yours is the only signature on the certificate and that you have freely accepted the obligation on your own. An obligation that we accept ourselves is an obligation that we most faithfully honor. Tomorrow, you will join the ranks of our alumni. In your professional life, you will serve as an example of what integrity and honor mean, and what it means to be a graduate of Tennessee Tech University. Before we conclude the ceremony, a few housekeeping items. If your name on your certificate is not correct, please make the corrections, put it in a white envelope that is on the table where you registered, put your mailing address on the envelope, and return it to one of our staff. If your ring does not fit, please come to the stage and exchange it for a correctly fitting one. If you lose your ring, badge, or pin, please contact the Dean's office for a replacement. Thank you for coming. This concludes the ceremony. Congratulations.